It doesn't matter. They still got white privilege because they're Christians, and Jesus was a Christian.
Well, they go deeper than that. Of course, the people doing the beheading are Mohammedans. This is the problem. They can't do anything that paints Mohammedanism.
I'm not going to hear this. This is the religion of peace, Calvin.
Yeah, period.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fox and Father with me, the Fox, and him,
the Father.
A show where Calvin tries to tutor me in the ways of righteousness, or actually now, in recent months, weeks even, I've had to tutor him in the ways of righteousness because he's gone a bit dodge, innit? Should we have a little update on Chateau Calvin?
I'm actually bored of it by now, if I'm honest with you. I'm bored of living in a state of perpetual drama. I just want things to settle down and get back to normal, some form of normalcy. You know, I don't like talking about myself, and I don't like being the situation. And I will say I've received loads of lovely support. I just want to highlight a few of them that have come in the post recently. This is for my friends in Sparta. This is my lovely friends from Pilgrimage. Marjorie, thank you very much. Loved this one as well. And one of my clergy friends. Lovely support. Always very good. And I love that. It's wonderful. And then this morning, I received this one, which says supporter at the top. I'm like, oh, supporter. That's interesting. Supporters don't generally call themselves supporters. Let's have a look.
Oh dear. There's always like, one.
Why are they stuck in like kindergarten, you know, or nursery school?
Hang on, it's written backwards on mine, but show it up again.
You are a F-U-C-K, and then there's obviously a swastika in the middle. But what I find interesting about this is like, if I was genuinely a Nazi, would I open this thing? Yeah, yes, I am. Thank you for telling me what I already know. And as I don't believe I am a Nazi, I'm going to open it and say, well, no, I'm not. So what is the point of something like this? Of course, wasting your time, your energy, and your money to pay to send it. I think
someone is sharing their children's artwork, Calv. Why can't you just be positive?
Honestly, I think these people don't have the capacity to express what they think. And what they want to say is, I don't think you're a good person. I think you're a bad person. We all agree Nazis are bad people. I'm going to call you a Nazi. That's because I can't articulate what I disagree with in your worldview or your. So this is my way, my childish, juvenile way of saying I don't like you. I think there are so many studies that could be done on leftist mentalities.
They're not the. I have come to the conclusion, having had a small lefty attack myself this week, that they aren't the sharpest knives in the drawer.
Mate, all you said was the very basic that a British politician should be British.
Make MPs British again.
Right.
And then the reason why I'm saying that they're not very smart is because they went. Obviously Zara's a bit scared and doesn't want to have a confrontation with me because she's a diversity hire from an all-woman, all-BAME shortlist. So she doesn't want to have a conversation with someone who's actually got a brain. So what she's done is she's got all her friends who are also not the sharpest knives in the drawer to go, look at this vile example of racism. And I was sitting there going, again, it's a bit like Christian. I was like, I mean, you can say a lot of things about it, but you can't call it racist.
No.
Because it's not remotely racist. I mean, in your version of racism, which is everything you disagree with is racist, it is racist. But actually...
or never challenge a brown person on the left.
Yeah. I'm really happy to challenge brown people. In fact, I enjoy it. That's why we talk every week. So she got so few people to have a pop at me and going, I've never seen so much racism. Back in the day, this racism. And I just took it goes to show what a sea change we're witnessing, because first of all, no one got involved in the pylon except each other. So it was just sort of rabid labor activists going, oh yeah, it's dreadful. And then second of all, I was so bored of it. Well, not bored of it. I was so amused by it that I just responded with facts, which they didn't like, which is like, you're not paid by the taxpayer to represent Gaza. You're
Right.
paid by the taxpayer to represent your constituency.
Quite
You
right.
could look through your Twitter feed. It's solid Gaza. You're not paid to do that. And then, fortunately, one of my lovely fans who you are lucky when you get to the big numbers on X, as you and I have managed to do. There's always someone who will give you a complete humdinger of something that person has said. So when Richard Bergen came after me, it's almost worth playing actually this response when Richard Bergen said, "What a terrible racist I was." Just play it.
You told a Labour Party meeting, did you not, in 2016, that Zionism is the enemy of peace?
Well, that was an allegation made by the Daily Express. I asked them at which meeting I was meant to have said that.
I think it was reported in the Daily Mail. But
Did
you say that?
Respond to me. I didn't say that, and they couldn't tell me when they believed I had said that. It's not my view.
So you didn't say. It's important because you may well be correcting the record here, which is important. You didn't say that.
No, and it's not my view. I believe that on occasions, the government of Israel, like the governments of other countries, has been an enemy of peace. But we've got to see that's a separate subject.
Oh, of course, and I understand the difference. Joan Ryan, though, Labour MP, she's the chair of Friends of Israel. She wrote to you asking you to clarify the comments, but when you replied to her, you didn't deny that you had made them.
Well, I didn't make those comments. I asked when I was meant to have made those comments. No one could tell me. And it's not my view. So if it's not my view, I wouldn't have made those comments.
Okay. So why didn't you just say, I didn't say it? Because I've got your reply here. You didn't deny that you'd said it.
Well, I would not have said that because it's not my view.
Okay.
So you didn't say it?
Well, you didn't say it. You've said that.
And the enemy of the Palestinian people is not the Jewish people. The enemy of the Palestinian people are Zionists. And Zionism is the enemy of peace and the enemy of the Palestinian people. And we need to be loud, we need to be proud in support of a free Palestine. I make no apologies. I'm proud to say, not only wouldn't I be a member of Labour Friends of Israel, I've never been a member of Labour Friends of Israel, and I'm all for everyone's opinions being out there and everyone having their opinion treated with respect. But look up on the internet, it's there to see on the Labour Friends of Israel website which MPs are members of Labour Friends of Israel, which Labour MPs are officers of Labour Friends of Israel, and ask them, in support of the Palestinian people, in protest of what's happening in Gaza now, to resign from Labour Friends of Israel to show support for all humanity.
And they are the exact thing they accuse you of. It is just bonkers. So you're talking about like there should be studies done into leftist mentality. Where would you begin? How would you do the study?
I don't know, but Carl Benjamin's been pointing out a lot of hypocrites lately. People like Ash Shakar who are trying to like roll back on their wokeness and try to paint themselves as always being anti-woke. I'm just a communist. I'm not actually woke. I don't believe in identity politics, even though they've spent the last 5 years pushing identity politics. So something, there's a massive shift. But for your lass to say, I've never experienced such racism, that's very telling as well. So she's genuinely never experienced racism, like any real racism, if she thinks that what you said is somehow the most racist thing she's ever experienced.
I know. It is funny. I feel sorry for real racists now because they're
victims of real racism or real racists.
Well, no, real racists, because they're not getting the recognition they deserve. Because
isn't it? It does water down.
Now that we're all racists, it's like those that have gone out of their way to really dislike brown people. You know, where's the credit that they're getting for this? Usually racists I've encountered in my life, online or in the street, they tend to be extremely proud of the fact. You know, they tend to walk around. True. Some of them even have swastikas tattooed on them. Yeah. Or they're in the Azov battalion in Ukraine. But that's another story. But they're so proud of it. And now they're nothing. They're going to have to find something new to do. And I think we should all take a moment for all those real horrible, bigoted, horrible racists out there to say, look, we see you, we hear you, and we understand that you're feeling a bit marginalized. They're a marginalized group now. Real racist.
In your typical humorous way, you are pointing out a very important issue in that we can't address real racism that does still occur because everything's racist now and everyone's a racist. So it means nothing. It's diluted to the point that it's not even a word.
It's not even a word, like Islamophobia. It's just not even a word. It's like, Islam, what? You stupid, silly person. And I find the whole thing so boring. While you're on Ash Sarkar, it is interesting, isn't it? Because Graham Lynn, there's two ways of looking at this. There's one to say the Emma Alberta Webb version, which is like what I think she's tweeted. Emma Trimble Webb. Sorry, Emma. Her version, which I have a lot of understanding and I'm interested in it, which is, what does victory look like if we can't forgive those that suddenly turn around and say, oh, sorry, I was wrong to call everyone a racist and talk about.
But the thing is, they never apologize. They just pretend they didn't do it in the first place.
Interesting. Good point. Now you've won me over.
What victory looks like is eradicating that nasty woke ideology. It means like coming down hard on it so that it can never come back again. It doesn't mean pretending that it didn't exist and letting people get on with it. That's ridiculous. It's wet. It's lukewarm. What does victory look like?
Okay, you've won that. Sorry, Emma Trimble Webb. Calvin's just won. If you want to be seen to be, if you want to be understood to be anti-woke now, and you're rolling back on identity politics and judging someone by the color of their skin, not the content of their character, then you're going to have to say, I made a mistake. I ask for forgiveness. Absolutely. It's called Christianity, isn't it? It's the Christian way.
I saw Emma Webb at ARC with James Lindsay, an old friend of mine. That was interesting fun. I like James a lot. I disagree with him on most things, but I like him a lot. But Emma, I
like him a lot too.
Pushing his idea of a woke right, the right wing woke or whatever it is, which is, he uses it very differently to how you use it. But I just think it doesn't exist now. The liberals, these centrists in the middle who've been fighting wokeism for so long, they're looking for an enemy now, and so they're inventing it on the right so they can continue their fight. And again, they're the ones asking the question, what does victory look like? Need to be asking themselves, what does victory look like? Because the Emma Webbs and the James Lindsays and that middle ground of woke centrist dads, Konstantin Kissins, that kind of that person, they are fighting the right now rather than joining with the right to make sure that what the left have been doing for the last decade, they can never ever do again.
Do you know what my friend Jeffrey calls them?
What?
Far centrist extremists.
Yeah, I like that. I just call them wets.
Yeah. I quite like far centrist extremists because I always quite like to use their language back at them. I suppose it's worth defining the difference between what I view the woke right and what James Lindsay views the woke right. I'll give you my quick version of what the woke right is. It's just purity tests, but on the other side.
Boom.
So for example, I totally got your from my heart to you. I totally got Elon's from my heart to you. I thought Steve Bannon's was like, mate, you don't, that at this point, it's just like, drop it.
Oh, that's interesting. I saw your tweet. I just assumed it was sarcastic.
No, I was a bit like, come on, man. This is like, you're now,
yes, you're now we normalize it. It's like the only way we remove power from these things is to entirely normalize them. And like the word racist, like the word Islamophobic, like the left have nothing to use at us anymore. If we take their weapons and just use them against them, crush them apart.
Again, that's a really good point. I'm not liking this. This is 2-0 and we haven't even fucking got going. I'm going to start swearing now. All right. Okay. Now we had to get on some serious topics.
I walked back into church. I'm back in the US, by the way. I made it back. Oh, we haven't even talked about the visa thing, but
you said I'm bored of talking about it. I just want to say I came back to church on Sunday, and obviously I can't celebrate the mass because my license has been removed. But I was with my parishioners, and as I walked in, a number of them did the "My heart goes out to you." God bless them, good people. I think that real, Christians with their heads screwed on properly understand that there is only one religion on this planet that you can criticize and is under major, major threat, and that is Christianity. There are no other religions that are under that threat. We've seen 70 people beheaded in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the BBC or ITV or the legacy bullshit media wouldn't go anywhere near it. It's like, oh, it's Christians, it's fine. They deserve to be beheaded. They're the white privileged people. Yeah, but they're black and they're in the Congo. It doesn't matter. They've still got white privilege because they're Christians, and Jesus was a Christian.
Well, it goes deeper than that. Of course, the people doing the beheading are Mohammedans. This is the problem. They can't do anything that paints Mohammedanism.
I'm not going to hear this. This is the religion of peace, Calvin.
Yeah.
That's
one way to get peace, isn't it? By beheading those who disagree with you. If there's no one to say anything against you, then you have peace to some degree.
It's quite a good way of getting peace. It's like, if you don't follow our God, we're going to chop your head off.
But yeah,
and
you're
also,
absolutely right.
if you're mean to us, we're going to call you an Islamophobe.
So I was going to wait until later, but my tweeter of the day, what do we call them?
Follower of the day.
Follower.
Fox and Father follows.
Fox and Father follows. My Fox and Father followers is Open Doors, because they are the only people who've reported on the fact that 70 Christians have been beheaded in the Congo.
Okay, hang on. Open Door. What's the thing? Because I'll follow them. Open Doors.
Open Doors. Oh gosh.
UK?
Yeah.
You know that one of these people that you're going to follow, supporting persecuted Christians, great. You know that one of the people you follow, Open Doors, will be some trans charity for people, for boys to get open doors into girls' bathrooms. So you got to be careful who you follow and who you tag in some X posts. Right, I'm following them now.
But yeah, they're fantastic, and they report on Christian persecution around the world. And as you say, legacy media weren't covering it, and most of us didn't even know it was going on until we found it through Twitter, through Open Doors, and I shared it, and a number of other people have shared it. And this is another reason why this is important, independent media, because we can discuss things that the BBC, ITV, and Channel 4 don't want to talk about.
I turned on Sky. So for some reason, my youngest son has stolen my Xbox, which is a good thing on many levels.
I thought it was his.
Well, maybe it was a gift, but maybe it was a family gift.
Oh,
for all of us to use.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's stolen it.
He's better than you.
He's better than me at everything now, and it's really upsetting. He's reached an age where he's just better than me and everything. Anyway, that I can mourn that later. So now that it's unplugged from the TV, when you turn on the TV, instead of the Xbox coming on, or the news comes on. Sky News.
Yes.
So I turned on the telly thinking, I hadn't yet dealt with the grief of losing the Xbox. And I turn on the TV and there's this guy, the first I watched 10 minutes. I said, right, you're going to do it. 10 minutes of Sky News. Go. The first 5 minutes was Keir Starmer's speech about the far right. Where he speaks seriously about nothing, but he says things without saying it, without any information coming out of his mouth, but all of it is important, and far right is a big threat. And I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious. Keir Starmer's blaming everything on the far right. This is brilliant. He's terrified of reform. Good. And he knows his game is up and he's finished. So I get through 5 minutes of Keir doing that, which was just like, oh, please. And Channel 4 News going, we go to our political correspondent, Johnny Mc says whatever the fuck he's told to say, and at the Labour Party Scotland event. Johnny, what did you think? And Johnny goes, there will be no doubt that there will be those across the land that will heed Keir Starmer's words about the far right. This was a speech of strength, of power, of intent, integrity. And I'm sitting there going, no, hang on. We just watched the same speech. This man is a charlatan socialist. I started to feel like I was living on another planet. Yeah. Then the second 5 minutes was, and now we go to our foreign correspondent, Johnny in combats in Kyiv, which is, apparently you have to say, I've noticed you have to say Kyiv now because it's culturally appropriating to actually say Kiev, which is how it is pronounced, because I can prove that via the chicken dish. But we're going to Kyiv. And then Johnny in combats is like, Zelensky is a hero, a warrior, and Keir Starmer's words will be, Europe is going to come to his savior, is going to come to his aid as America refuses to help out Vladimir Muk 5 grams a night. And I'm just like, what the effing hell is going on in this world? Zelensky is a puppet. The whole thing is that the Ukrainian army is full of Nazis. And to say that Britain could contribute anything militarily to this war is insane. I mean, Vladimir Putin could sneeze and wipe out the British army. at this juncture. But we're all made to believe. And why are they doing this to us? Well, not me, because I only had to do 10 minutes of it, but to the older generation who turn on Sky News and who watch the BBC and stuff. What are they trying to do?
Well, it's constant indoctrination, isn't it? It's like they show you the Keir Starmer thing and then they tell you what to think of it rather than just showing it to you and let you making your own mind up. It's disgusting propaganda. But I find the Zelensky thing fascinating because, of course, there's this report that they want to cancel elections in the Ukraine because he might not win. What? That's not a good reason to cancel an election. And so President Trump comes out and uses the word dictator, which in this context is quite fitting, and the left go nuts. Because, of course, Trump is the one that they think is a dictator, the democratically elected president who's pretty much come through on every promise already. But of course, he's the one they think is a dictator. But the one cancelling the press, cancelling free and fair elections, he's to be lauded as the savior of democracy in the West. I'm like, these words clearly don't mean the same thing to you that they mean to me.
It is insane that we still 3 or 4 years on, 3 years on is the anniversary, isn't it? 3 years on. So no one has come up with a military objective. Not a single Western leader has come up with and gone, right, what we're going to do is we're going to return to the borders pre the Crimean invasion. That's our military objective. So we want Crimea back and we want Donbass back. And then you go, okay, well, if that's your military objective, how much is it going to cost? What are we going to do? Zelensky's like, I only got $79 billion from America. It's like, no, mate, you got 200. You're missing $121 billion dollars. You're the corruptest kleptocratic bastard who is killing his nation ever. Do I agree with Putin's invasion of Ukraine? No. Do I agree that there is a huge proportion of ethnic Russians in the areas that Putin has attacked? Yes. Do I believe that there's a huge proportion of ethnic British people in Northern Ireland? No, I don't particularly. So the way that Britain sits there and goes, we're going to lecture you on captured territory and stuff like that, when there's a whole chunk of a little island next door to us that is under British control, it's like Putin's just doing what we've done throughout the centuries. And the left do my head in over this. Sorry, rant over.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with the parallels, but I understand the analogy you're making. But your main point is right, is that what is their objective? What do they want to achieve? Again, going back to Emma's question, what does victory look like? All I hear from our politicians is we will fund the Ukraine for as long as it takes. As long as what takes? For the politicians to continue to get rich through BlackRock, who are being paid to rebuild the Ukraine, even though, why are you rebuilding it when it's still in when it's still war zone? Like, what's happening with our taxpayer money? 100 billion plus from the US, 3 billion a year from the UK, 18 billion at least so far. Like, that's billions and billions and billions of pounds or dollars. Where's it all going? Onto what? And
Rolls Royces, mainly.
I'm sure some of it will end up in the Ukraine in terms of arms, but a lot of it, I'm sure, will also end up in the back pockets of the same politicians who are telling us that we need to keep funding this war. It's never.
I'm sure. Yeah, when you say for what is the objective for as long as it takes, I think that is the objective. In order for socialism to thrive, is you've got to have a forever war. But if you think about it, none of the aid that was sent from USAID. I love the fact that Stonewall are firing 60 employees because of USAID. I love the fact that they're cleaning out, Trump is cleaning out, and Elon are cleaning out our own institutions that are destroying our country. So 60 Stonewallers are getting fired.
The Rory Stewart one was fun, wasn't it? That his wife can no longer peddle crappy modern art lectures about urinals to Afghani women. It's like, what? Why are we getting paid millions for that?
I like Persian artisan handbags. You're so discriminatory. You're a racist. There are Persian artisan handbags out there that have no home now, thanks to USAID. But the idea that, all of this money gets sent somewhere and it all goes to the people, it's like, no, it goes to chopping up all the water pipes that were installed in Gaza, for example, digging a load of tunnels so the terrorists can walk around, and building some rockets. That's what your money got spent on. And I'm sure that like in all of like with, the basis of every great lie is always based in truth. There is an element of saying, of course we want to help people with HIV in Africa. We do. That's unless one wants to go into the conspiracy theory about HIV, which I don't particularly right now. But of course,
some dodgy stuff going on there, though. I'm not going to lie.
I know. Actually, let's go into it straight after this. But of course you want to do that. But that doesn't mean that 99% of the other stuff that USAID is doing is demonic anti-American evil. Because, again, it's the thing about socialism. You can't ask people to vote for it because they never will. The only way you can do it is by propagandizing, brainwashing people to impose upon them. Quickly, before we go to HIV, because I want to go to HIV. I got this email. USAID,
people should check Larry Taunton's article that went live today as we record. What website was it on? thefederalist.com. Larry writes about his incident with the USAID in Egypt, which of course Laurence was publishing on his Twitter feed, because Larry is like trying to record these people on the sly as he gets investigated by USAID security, Cairo police, and the NSA just for checking out USAID Cairo, which is still going. It's still not a closed shop,
and still not on Google Maps. Surprise, surprise. Everywhere else is, but not USAID. Anyway. So this takes me on, this idea of the fact that you can't ever make good thinking people think stupid ideas, and they should bombard them with propaganda like Sky News does or the BBC does. Right. The BBC had to pull down their Hamas documentary because it turned out to be narrated by someone from Hamas. I just think it would be funny if it wasn't so unbelievably appalling. So I think, where's all this crap come from? So I'm sort of scrolling through my emails today, and I get an email from my son's school, which I'm stupid enough to pay a huge amount of money for him to be sent to, because it was pre-divorce, and now I've got to stay with it. If I had any say at all, he'd be in the local state school, which would be just as bad. I just wouldn't have to pay for it. Okay, so one of the paragraphs is just under a fortnight ago. No, I can't read that because that says the school. Okay. Following the pandemic, the world witnessed the death of George Floyd and the impact it had on the issue of racial equity. The acceleration of the climate crisis.
What? Sorry?
Increasing scrutiny over the role that technology plays in our lives and communities affected by conflicts around the world. Quickly help me through.
I'm struggling.
The world witnessed the death of George Floyd and the impact it had on the issue of racial equity, the acceleration of the climate crisis.
Was he killed by the clouds? What happened?
He couldn't breathe, Calvin.
I see. Because of all the fentanyl or whatever in his system, which was brought about by the climate crisis, because it's difficult to grow these crops in the United States, so they have to import them. And therefore, I'm lost. I have no idea what they're talking about.
No, you were nearly there. Because that's their logic. It's like in the same way as that. So let's be fair on the left as we are on the right. On the right, we apply reason and logic to everything. So we just go, does that make sense? Is that common sense? Does it make common sense to chop off children's breasts and penises? No, let's not do that. So we just apply reason and common sense, whereas the left just apply pure emotion. But they do it across the board. So it's very easy for them to say that racial equity and the climate crisis are the same thing. Both are existential problems for the planet. And I tweeted last night, and in a moment of what I thought was extreme clarity for me at that time of night, I said that the left spend their lives convincing us to be terrified of problems that don't exist. Yeah. And the right spend their time trying to stay sober enough not to allow them, or something along those lines. It was actually, I put it so much better in my tweet, but it was basically saying one side of this world, the godless atheistic side of this world, want you to believe that it's all coming to an end, and the people that have got common sense and reason just have to stay awake long enough to go, guys, seriously, really? It's like being a kindergarten teacher. The left spend their entire lives trying to make you terrified about something which doesn't exist. The right spend their entire lives trying to stay sober enough to notice. That's what I said.
That's good, but I think we all realize that it's coming to an end. Like Western civilization, as we've known it for the last few hundred years, is coming to an end. We just disagree on the reasons for that. The left want to make it all about racial equity and the climate crisis, whereas on the right, we see that actually it's degeneracy, debauchery, lack of morals, lack of ethics, lack of values. And I think we can't agree on the cause or even the symptoms, but we just all recognize that it's coming to an end.
Yeah, there's, I think the AFD, which I wouldn't mind talking about, and then let's do HIV first, because that is, okay. Let's do some rabbit holes, because why not? So the reason why we both, can I posit a suggestion as to the reason why we both may have slightly giggled about the HIV, is because suddenly Keir Starmer, in the middle of like being the worst prime minister ever, and just everything is going wrong for Keir Starmer, he suddenly decided to start talking about HIV, and everyone's like, "What? Why are you talking about HIV?" And then you go, "Why is he talking about HIV?" And from there, Calvin will pick up the story.
It's interesting. I can't find a tweet now. It's interesting, but I've seen there's been some research done that suggests that perhaps some of these COVID jabs are destroying T cells, and there's a name for an illness that destroys T cells. We call it HIV. So it may be suggested by some researchers, not by myself, but some academics, that the COVID jabs could be essentially causing AIDS.
So we're not positing that that Anthony Fauci, who's now been pardoned for all problems that he committed, in the name of medical science. We're not positing on any level that what happened with the universal rollout of these highly experimental vaccines may cause symptoms similar to the last great genuine epidemic that took over the world. Are we?
It's awful and it's terrifying, but of course it's still too taboo. Too many people, there are too many vested interests that people don't want to properly look into this, but it needs to be looked into. We're seeing so many, we're getting to a point where finally people are able to say, there are so many adverse effects to these jabs. People are getting heart conditions, blood clots. It's not good for their health, and we should have restricted it to people who needed it, if there were any people that needed it, rather than the mass population. But I think it'll take a number of years before we get to the point where we're able to properly look at the evidence and see how bad these jabs were. I'm just thanking God that I didn't take one. But I pray for people that did, because they were conned into it.
Yeah, coerced, conned, in many ways forced. I love the way that Pete Hegseth has said that it's back pay and you can rejoin the US Army for those that didn't take it. To think that I think we often underestimate how close we were to the end of everything, which is the title of Victor Davis Hanson's book. And Victor Davis Hanson is very much, for me, a weather vane on the conservative side of thinking, because he always is several years ahead of everybody else. And he wrote a book called The End of Everything. And I think he thought if the Dems won this time, then it was the end of everything. It was the end of the Western
absolutely
of civilization as we know it. But as it turns out, as you quite rightly point out, it is the end of Western civilization as we know it. It's just none of us can agree on what that looks like. And that's
to give a bit of hope, I do think America has chosen a different path to the rest of the mainstream West. And I think there's a chance that things can be turned around here. And if it can be turned around here, then it can be turned around everywhere else as well. But this is the last chance, really.
Can I tell you something about Rome?
Yeah.
I went to Rome, for Lizzie's birthday.
Cradle of civilization, one of the most beautiful parts of the world.
And I've seen a few tweets from Sadiq Khan saying that yet again London has been voted world's greatest city. I'm not really a city person. I've been to a lot of them. I've done Paris. I've done all of them, all the European ones, and not pretty recently. And a lot of them are dumps, Paris particularly. And I've been to a lot of American cities, and a lot of them are dumps, especially the Democrat-run ones. But I haven't done Rome since I took my eldest son there as a little boys' trip when he was about 5. That was the last time I was in Rome. And I went to Rome, and Lizzie and I just walked around and went to do all the things that you do when you're in Rome. Never seen a cleaner city. there's still a lot of, you definitely want to watch your mobile phone in Rome. Let's be fair. You do want to watch your mobile phone in Rome. But the thing that struck me the most was how pretty the diversity barriers were. So, our diversity barriers are so ugly.
Yeah.
I find them so ugly, the big, giant black diversity barriers that are everywhere to stop the far-right extremists with their suicide bombs coming in and blowing up the people of color. The diversity barriers in Rome are like round concrete, beautiful sort of concrete bowls, polished concrete bowls with little olive trees in them. So when the far-right extremists, not the jihadist, because jihad has very nuanced meanings. Jihad doesn't mean killing people in advancing Islam. That's not what it means. It's very nuanced. When the far-right extremists come to break through the diversity barriers, the last thing they'll see as they're wielding their semtex and their scimitars of peace is they'll go, oh, that's a really nice diversity barrier. But then the very last thing they'll see is a military jeep which says Escreto or something like that, with a little gazebo next to it, with two Italians looking, I'm only about 15 to 18% gay, but pretty hot, with big old machine guns. So when the far-right extremists come to try and break through the diversity barriers, they're going to be met by two guys with machine guns. And it's everywhere, all over Rome. So I felt safe from the far-right extremists who are ruining society, as Keir Starmer quite rightly pointed out. What do you make of it? Do you think what would you give London out of 10 compared to Rome?
Oh, I think Rome is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I think it's gorgeous. There's so much Christian heritage there on display, and it's like you're living through it. You're walking through it. Obviously, I was in Jerusalem the last time you and I talked on a podcast, and that should have been a place of pilgrimage. But I have far more spiritual experiences in Rome. But London, of course, I was there for a few days. I think it was 3 days. I was there for ARC between Jerusalem and coming back here and getting my visa restored so that I can come back here. And London is just horrible. It's horrible speed. There's no English people there at all. And I mean, call it racist if you want, but just getting on the tube with there's people shouting in African and all kinds of dialects on their cell phones. It's uncouth. It's crowded. It's overcrowded. It's smelly. It's just not a nice place to be. And I don't see why anyone would vote it the best city in the world.
It's our greatest strength, diversity, Calv.
But
we can't agree on that, then
in
I
your
don't
jokes,
know what
you point out these serious issues, like those diversity barriers, as you call them. That's a massive thing, because at some point we're going to look back in history and think, well, they were saying that Islam was the religion of peace, that it's the far right that are the threat all the time. But why were they building these great big bollards to prevent Islamic terrorists? Why were all the terrorists from Islam, and no one was addressing Islam as a problem and saying Islam is the solution, diversity is our strength, and somehow inventing this far right who are going to do what to who, when, where? Like, some point we've got to look back and say we were crazy, right?
Yeah, I have a feeling that point is coming a lot sooner than anyone thinks, which will very quickly take me on to my Fox and Father Follows. Dan Bermawi. Did I do him before? Have I done him before? Because if I have, I don't care. I'm doing him again. Dan Bermawi is an ex-Muslim, as far as I can gather, and he writes pretty much daily, very, very good explanation of exactly what Islam is, exactly what Islam intends to do, exactly how it does it. And none of this stuff would be disputed by Muslims, proper Muslims either, because it's literally the core tenets of their faith. And you can find him at DAN, capital BURMAWY, Dan Bermawi. He's CEO of Project X. I've done him before, but he's worth doing again, because honestly, he's a really, really fascinating guy, and he's got a very, very good way of writing this. But do you think that we're going to look back in the same way as we look back at the gender cult and the trans banners? Are we going to look back at the invasion of Britain by the Islamic hordes? Are we going to be able to face them down? I mean, are we going to be able to say, excuse me, off you go and live over there. Thanks a lot.
We won't be looking back because there'll be no England left. There'll be no English left for certain. the United Kingdom will be an Islamic caliphate or some form of horrible hodgepodge of diversity with no predominant culture remaining. So there won't be anyone looking left from there. But people from the outside will be looking in. Just as right now, people from America are looking in say, what the heck's going on in the United Kingdom? Why are people being silenced? Why is there no free speech? Why are people being arrested for silent praying in their own head? Why is Tommy Robinson still in prison for contempt of court in a high security prison in solitary confinement, unable to purchase anything from a commissary, unable to have visitors or speak to people he loves? Like, what is going on in this so-called free country? So people are looking from the outside and thinking we're insane. I suppose that will continue to grow, but I don't think we'll have any retrospect in the United Kingdom because I don't think there will be much of a United Kingdom left.
I agree. Well, I agree with the first part of your statement. I don't agree with the second. Dan Hodges, who's been having a pop at me, and anyone else who
that's what he does.
Has been saying that they hope that Trump kneels on Keir Starmer's balls very hard and imposes tariffs on anything he can impose tariffs on until Keir Starmer gets through the online safety bill and all this sort of crap. And Dan Hodges goes, well, you're not even patriots. And I would say that sort of by that logic, which Dan didn't like when I responded to him in this way, I said, by your logic, Germans that didn't Stand By Hitler, they weren't patriots because they didn't stand by their leader. So what is it with lefties always saying, it doesn't matter how bad it is? I think a lefty, a true lefty, could have their mother beheaded next to them in the street and say, it's nuanced.
Well, they're obviously, the leftists are not patriotic, not the current leftists. So they're trying to use your own thoughts or feelings and cares and value. They're trying to use your own values against you because they know that you are patriotic. So they're trying to say, you're not very patriotic, then you're not supporting your country. When actually what you want is for the best for your country. And you realize those in power don't have the best interests of your country at heart. So you're kind of against them and hoping that a foreign power will put some pressure on them. Of course, that's not something you want in ordinary times, but we're living in extraordinary times where we need all the help we can get.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. And your point is well taken that they use your strength against you, which is say, well, if you're patriotic, just be patriotic then.
Yeah. So that's like people say, that's not very Christian. When they're not actually Christian. They don't give a damn about what it means to be Christian, but they want to use your own values against you.
You've got to do that voice again. Just say it again.
You're not very Christian.
I love it. I'm loving Calvin. Calvin's got his smile back. Okay, so you've just got to tell everyone. First of all, we got to thank everyone that has so far contributed to the let's keep Calvin solvent again. But how did you get back into the US? Because I know that everyone I spoke to, no, I didn't even bother calling anyone English because they're useless. But I spoke to a few American people and they dropped everything and were just like, how can we help? Let's help them out. So, what was the yeah, the English are fucking useless, aren't we? We're so useless.
I had such good support. So firstly, I'm in Israel at the time. And of course, President Trump releases this statement saying, if the hostages aren't released by Saturday, there's going to be a hellfire. So I'm like, okay, great. So I might be stuck in Israel during hellfire. What a time to be there. And my visa gets revoked once I get to Israel. So someone had been waiting for me to leave America before they revoked my visa. I haven't yet found out who, but after speaking to the people at the US Embassy in London, who are the ones who revoked it, it seems it was someone high up in the ACC. Make your own conclusion. That's Anglican Catholic Church. Make your own conclusions as to who that might have been.
It can't possibly have been the man who is spending his entire free time blogging like Tom Fox about what a satanically evil person you are. Could it? Could it, Calvin?
Who knows? But anyway, they revoked my visa. And my ESTA status was changed, which I assume is automatic once you get your visa revoked. So I wasn't allowed back in the country. Bear in mind, all of my worldly belongings were on a shipping container to America at the time. My place of residence was in America. Like my whole life was here. I had nothing in the UK to go to, nowhere to go. I was like, okay. And then someone mentioned to me, do you even want to go to the UK right now? Because whoever may have leaned on the US Embassy in London to revoke your license, revoke your visa, may also be leaning on the Met to arrest you once you get back in the UK on some trumped-up hate speech or hate crime law to say, he's a Nazi or something like that. And once you've got a criminal record, you can't get a visa again. And just for clarity, I wasn't on a religious visa. My visa had nothing to do with my ministry. I'm on I won't go into it just because in case people try to sort it
cancel that one too. Yeah,
but it shouldn't have been revoked in the first place. And once I spoke to some friends who have contacts in the U.S. Secretary of State's office, and the U.S. Secretary of State got on the case, looked into it, and saw that it was a silly situation. Spoke to the U.S. Embassy in London, who contacted me to say, "Oh, what happened? We don't know. Let's restore your visa." And so I eventually got it restored hours before I was supposed to fly back to America. Literally that night, I went to bed, and the morning I woke up, and finally it was no longer saying revoked on the website. So I managed to get back in the country. And then the next day, after I get back in the country, my shipping container arrived with all my goods. So it was perfect timing. But it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun being stuck in Israel. It wasn't fun potentially having to go back to the UK and getting stuck there. And it wasn't fun not being able to get home, which is at the moment Grand Rapids.
It's really bad that you've, but I'm so pleased on one level, it's really awful what you've been through, but I'm so pleased it's turned out really well. And I also want to, I do think in the spirit of reconciliation, there are a lot of people, who would feel, and I said this straight away to you, I know, because we are honest with each other. There's a lot of people that say, well, they didn't really care or disagree hugely with your blatant mockery of Elon Musk or mimicry of Elon Musk. There are people that just don't want grief and shit in their lives. They just, and one has to show some conciliation and understanding to the fact that, you've gone into a church, you're a big personality, you're known worldwide. I've walked around Washington, DC with you. You're well known. And so to them, really, there are some humble people who just want to go to church and they don't need the drama. Oh. But also, you've had huge amounts of support, as you say, people giving you the Roman salute as you've walked in. And I think probably one of the things that we all should do is show some understanding to those people who just don't want to fight. For some reason, they just go, you know what? I just want to worship God. I don't want to, or I just want to get on with my day. Those are the people that have usually really, really upset me in life, because I'm just like, you don't understand how bad it is. It's going to be your life in a minute if you don't fight. But actually, there are some genuine reasons that people don't want to get involved in these sorts of conflicts. And one of those genuine reasons is what's just happened to you. And, and I sit here 5 years later from being cancelled. And I'm like, I don't say half the stuff that people say on the left, and they just get a complete free pass. And, still smeared like all week as a racist by some idiot leftist bollocks. And I do just go, God, everyone needs to stand up and wake up and deal with this. But I've come to the conclusion they're probably never going to do that.
Most people don't have that in them. And so there's two sides to that. I think leaders have to have that in them. I think leaders have to stand up for the truth, especially spiritual leaders, especially bishops. If they don't, I think they're wolves in sheep's clothing. I don't think it's acceptable for a bishop to say, we've got to keep our head down, focus on a little corner of the church, be introspective, inwardly looking, not outwardly facing. Like, our job is to be a hospital to sinners. Our job as the church is to bring people in, to lead souls to Christ. Right, it's to offer salvation to the world through Jesus Christ. So it's not to focus on a Sunday club. It's not a private members club. It's not somewhere to get dressed up fancy and have a nice little service. That's not what church is about. So shepherds should not be for that. However, for the flock, that's a different matter. So most people, I don't think, are fighters. And so the hardest thing for me has been, how do I be a spiritual father and engage in this fight without hurting my flock? And so I have to be extra cautious and think doubly hard when I speak publicly or do something publicly. How is this going to affect my flock? Because I can't put them through what they've just been through. The drama of it all is it's too much for a lot of people. It's unnecessary. So absolutely, I want to be fighting the good fight. I want to be speaking at the National Pro-Life Summit for the sanctity of life. Absolutely. But next time I need to consider what joke I make at the end of it, because it's not just about me and the people there. It's also about the people back home in the parish.
Oh my God, that's a really rational piece of contrition. Can I ask, but I don't want to lose mischievous Calvin, the one that likes to do what I do, which is like poke it the bear from the side and try and make it laugh. the jokey part. So how much of your day do you not spend dressed as a priest? Like, are there rules as a priest that you have to wear priest stuff all day?
There are traditions, not rules, but it doesn't even matter if you take off the collar, you're still the priest. So it's kind of.
Well, not necessarily. I don't think that from my heart to yours would have had half the attention if it was at a pro-life event, which, lefties who love killing things would have been very upset that you were defending the life of the unborn child anyway. So they would have been right on that. But I don't think it would have had half the cut through if you hadn't been wearing your vestments.
But the cut through is not really important. It's the reaction of the bishop that's important in this case. So I think having a cowardly leader would have warranted a cowardly response regardless. So I think he would have revoked my license whether I was wearing the collar at the time or not, because it was the action.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look.
I don't want to be modal. I don't want to be like, now I'm in priest mode. No. So I kind of just have to find a way that I can walk that tightrope, that very fine balance, without causing too much controversy or scandal, but whilst also being able to speak truth.
Maybe social media is your platform for that. Maybe if you like, and this sort of media outlet is your platform for that, where you can speak to a slightly different flock, not the flock within your church. And then if you're speaking at sort of big public events that are going to be covered by news channels and stuff like that, you've got to put your kind of not, like I should have put on. Well, I shouldn't. Actually, I don't really care. But when I said I wouldn't shag that. Maybe I should have saved that for social media rather than done it on a Ofcom regulated TV channel.
We live and we learn, Lawrence.
Do we?
None of us are perfect, but the thing is, we should have support and we should have people who have our back, especially our leaders. People should be there to say, you know what, that wasn't the best way to say that. That wasn't the best thing to do. However, maybe you need to show some, like for you, example, the thing I said at the time is you should have been given an opportunity to apologize if you believed that you were wrong. And I think that would have solved everything. There's no need to fire you on the spot. And I think in my situation, it was very similar. My bishops still haven't given me a phone call to this day to explain myself or offer an apology. And I think that would have been a better approach than an instant firing dismissal via email, which I think is very effeminate. I think when you have a problem with someone, you speak to them face to face or over the phone. Just to send an instant dismissive email, it's very effeminate behavior. We need masculine leaders again. We need people who are willing to step up and man up and not be cowardly little men.
Oh God, this is why I love you so much. There's only so few people that will say it, and you're right. It is the destruction of masculinity comes with the destruction of the church as well, and all of these sorts of things. So, you're absolutely right. Now, Lacey wanted us to do something quickly. I don't seem to remember. What does she want us to do?
Lacey got a name drop. Hey, Lacey.
Hey, Lacey.
What does she want us to do?
We've not covered any of the topics that Lacey's put on her list of things.
Also,
Lacey.
Just wanted to say thank you for the putting out the crowdfund as well, and that will help if we're able to secure like a place in Grand Rapids to launch the public ministry from that is uncancelable. No bishop can walk in and say, "Oh, you don't be saying that now." We'll be good.
Oh, I love this voice. I need you to do a whole show with this voice. I think we're going to get there. It's amazing how many people on our side of the argument, as an aside, little keyboard warriors who've never put themselves up in the front line of anything, came with a load of advice. You got to tell Calvin this. You got to tell him that. He can't do this. He can't do that. And I'm like, what's it got to do with you?
The amount of
sit on a sofa all day. I mean, I don't care what you've got to say.
It comes from a place of love, and I appreciate all of these people, but the amount of unsolicited advice I've had, and mostly from people that don't know the full picture, so they're like, no, that didn't happen. This is what happened. I'm like, actually, love, I was there. I know what happened. But they mean well.
They do mean well. You see, look, you're in grace mode, which is great. Oh yeah, what Lacey says at the end is that you have to do a little prayer for everybody. Yeah.
Yes,
I think that's a good way of checking out. Anyway. So I've seen Calvin. He's back in America. Everything is fine-ish.
It will be eventually.
Sorry that our Fox and Father is a little bit late this week, but obviously you can tell we've had a couple of shenanigans going on. And Calvin's going to close us out with a prayer and a blessing.
Let us pray. O God, from whom all holy desires, all good counsels, and all just works do proceed, give unto thy servants that peace which the world cannot give, that both our hearts may be set to obey thy commandments, and also that by thee we, being defended from the fear of our enemies, may pass our time in rest and quietness, through the merits of Jesus Christ our Saviour. Amen.
Oh man, I'll take that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we shall see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.